Good morning, students. Today we can start our section with the saltatory conduction. In the last class, we have learned about the refractory period, latent period, all or none law, etc. So, what is saltatory conduction? Saltatory conduction is the movement or the transduction of nerve impulse in a myelinated neuron from one node to another node, from one nodes of Ranveer to next nodes of Ranveer. This is a jumping way. That type of nerve impulse transmission is called saltatory conduction. And this type of conduction normally takes place in myelinated neurons. And we need to talk about the rate of conduction of nerve impulse through neurons. We consider the case of a thick nerve. The rate of impulse transduction is very fast. And so, in the case of thin nerve, the speed is very slow. And while we are talking about myelinated, there is the neurons that is having a myelin sheath around its axon. And in that case, they are happening this saltatory type conduction. It is faster. So, when we are comparing a myelinated neuron with a non-myelinated one, which one will conduct nerve impulse faster? A myelinated nerve conduct impulse faster than a non-myelinated neuron. That is about the rate of conduction of impulse transmission. Then mode of action, potential transmission, propagation, how in saltatory conduction. I already told you that in saltatory conduction, the propagation is always happening from one node to next node. And what are the advantages of saltatory transmission? It increases the conduction velocity and also it is energy efficient method of conducting impulses, because only a small part of axon is involved in the exchange of ions for generating or making that change. What is depolarization and repolarization? Only a small area is required to make that change. That area means that area of nodes. Other areas doesn't require to undergo that series of changes. Depolarization, repolarization. Only those areas without myelin sheath, that is nodes only, required to undergo these cyclical changes. So it is energy efficient also. That is the one advantage of saltatory. Mainly two advantages. First is it increases the velocity or speed of impulse transmission, and the second one, it is energy efficient method of impulse transmission. Then we are going to talk about the synapses. Synapses, what is synapses? Is the junction between two neurons. The point where two neurons meet. That is synapses. It can be of neuron junction or a neuron effector junction. Synapses can be of two types. If it is between a neuron meeting with another neuron, or a neuron meets with an effector organ. Anyway, it's a junction. And the term is coined by Sherrington. And in a synapse, we can see the ends of two nerves. The nerve that is carrying that impulse towards the synapse is called the presynaptic nerve, and that nerve that receives that impulse from the presynaptic neuron is called the postsynaptic neuron. The neuron nerve that carrying that impulse is called presynaptic, and that nerve that receives that impulse and conveyed downwards, that nerve is called postsynaptic neuron. That about synapses. What is synapses? The term is coined by who? And presynaptic and postsynaptic neuron. Then we are going to talk about chemical transmissions. Very, very important. Chemical transmission across the synapse. Yes, is missed here. I said typing mistake. Yes, I forgot to put S here. Anyway, chemical transmission across the synapses. So let's see what is happening. This is the presynaptic node and this one is the postsynaptic node, and somewhere an action potential is originated and it is conveyed till the end of this nerve. Otherwise we can tell that action potential is developed and it is reached up to the presynaptic node. Action potential reached here. And in this region present so many mitochondria, other cell organelles can be found in this region. And along with that some vesicles are found. Vesicles means in that vesicles present certain chemical substances called neurotransmitters. What are called? Neurotransmitters. So next we can see what is going to happen here. As an action potential reaches this presynaptic node, voltage gated calcium channels opened. Look here. Voltage gated calcium channel opened, and as a result from the plasm, calcium enters the presynaptic node. As the calcium enters that presynaptic node, as a result of that, once again we can go backward. Calcium enters that vesicle carrying neurotransmitter come and join with the membrane and release its content in the space between the two nerve endings. So, what's happened here? Once more, as the action potential reaches the presynaptic node, voltage gated calcium channels open, calcium enters the presynaptic node, and when calcium enters the presynaptic node, the vesicles that carries the neurotransmitters releases its content by merging with the membrane, the nerve membrane. It discharges its contents to this space. Now, the neurotransmitter may be of acetylcholine sometimes. So many neurotransmitters are present. And now we can call it as acetylcholine. Then what is happening to this neurotransmitter substance? Here, in this postsynaptic node present some receptors. And these neurotransmitters go and bind with these receptors. And as a result of that binding, the action potential is conveyed to this neuron. And it is transmitting down the network system, down the neuron system. In this way, the action potential is conveying the entire body. And after this conduction, after this transmission of action potential, we need to remove this neurotransmitter. Otherwise, the action potential will continue to transmit across the synapse. So, what is doing there? Neurotransmitter is either digested or taken back to the presynaptic node. And if it is if its digestion is happening there, that digestion is done by acetylcholine esterase. And by the action of acetylcholine esterase, the products formed are acetate and choline. What is that? I will tell the spelling. ACETATE, acetate, and choline, CHOLINE, choline. And these two substances are returned to presynaptic node, and on reaching the presynaptic node, it again recombined to form acetylcholine with the help of another enzyme called choline acetyl transferase. What is the name of that enzyme? Choline acetyl transferase. Spelling CHOLINE. Here it's given here. Choline acetyl transferase. These are the process happen in chemical transmission. Once more, action potential is reaching presynaptic node. Voltage gated, calcium channel open. As calcium flush into the presynaptic node, the vesicles carrying neurotransmitters come and join with the membrane and release empties its content to this synapse and the space between these two new nerve endings. And this neurotransmitter then come and bind on the receptors on the postsynaptic node and activate and start a new action potential here in this postsynaptic node, and in that way that nerve impulse is conducted downwards. And after initiating an action potential here, it is necessary to remove this neurotransmitter. It is done either by digesting the neurotransmitter or is taking back. Digestion of that neurotransmitter is done by acetylcholine esterase, and resynthesization of that neurotransmitter is done by another enzyme, choline acetyl transferase. I think everybody have understand the process. So we can go to the next slide. Then we are going to tell about the neurotransmitters, different types of neurotransmitters. In chemical transmission, I have told you about the acetylcholine. Similar to acetylcholine, there are so many other types of neurotransmitters. Then first we need to give a definition to neurotransmitter. What is neurotransmitter? They are certain chemicals used to pass electrical signal. That chemicals are called neurotransmitters. They are chemicals used to pass the electrical signal between the nerves. That chemicals are called neurotransmitters. Different types are there. Some amino acids acts as neurotransmitters. Example for amino acids acts as neurotransmitters are glutamate, gamma amino butyric acid, GABA. This is otherwise known as GABA, GABA, gamma amino butyric acid, aspartic acid, etc. Examples for amino acids acting as neurotransmitters. Similar to that, some neuropeptides also functions as neurotransmitters. Examples are vasopressin, somatostatin, neurotensin, etc. Monoamines also acts as neurotransmitters. Examples norepinephrine, dopamine, etc. Single ions also acts as neurotransmitters. They are synaptically released zinc, nitrogen monoxide, etc. And the neurotransmitters are of inhibitory and exhibitory. Example for exciting neurotransmitter, it is glutamate, and an inhibitory neurotransmitter is GABA and glycine. When these neurotransmitter function, that the supposed neuron's action will be inhibited. And when this glutamate is present, the neuron correspond to that neurotransmitter will be excited. It's not inhibited. That is the difference. Inhibitory and exhibitory. When these substances are present, the neuron correspond to that neurotransmitter will inhibited, and the excitatory neurotransmitter like glutamate when present, its corresponding neuron get excited because of its presence. Then next heading is electric transmission. Two types of transmissions are there. Chemical transmission in the it is also already discussed just before the chemical transmission, chemical nerve impulse transmission. We already discussed. And next, another type of impulse transmission is electrical transmission, and it is less common and is common in invertebrates. Mainly, it is less common. Wherever it is found only in invertebrates. Only in invertebrates we can see this type of electrical transmission. This process as a whole is less common, but we are found in some organism. Some organism means where? In invertebrates. So, its process is very simple when compared with the chemical transmission. In electrical transmission, the synapses are not kept apart. They remains very close together because of the presence of gap junctions. Gap junctions means the two nerve endings are brought together with the help of some special proteins called connexin. Connexin. Connexins are certain peculiar type of protein that brings two cells together. It is a cell communication junction. So, whenever an action potential reaches this presynaptic knob, the ions from this presynaptic knob can easily pass to the postsynaptic neuron by the opening and closing of this connexin. So, it's very easy easy and simple when compared with the process of chemical transmission, chemical impulse transmission. Okay, what is happening? In this case, both the knobs are held together, very close together with the help of gap junction composed of connexin proteins. And because of this connexin protein, as an action potential reach here, ions flow ions flow happens easily through the regulated opening and closing of this connexin protein. And most oftenly, the direction of impulse conduction takes place unidirectionally. Means takes place only in one direction. That is about the electrical transmission across the synapses. Next, showing the movement of ions, the opening and closing of connexin. Next slide. Electroencephalogram, very important. It's also asked, and so many students have mistaken it with the ECG. ECG and EEG. ECG relating with the heart and EEG connecting with the nerves, brain. So don't mistaken these two terms. Electroencephalogram. What is electroencephalogram? It is the recording of brain activity, nerve activity. It is a form of recording of nerve activity. And one more thing we need to listen here, that is electroencephalogram. Gram and graph. Electroencephalograph is the instrument. Only hearing that n portion of that term, that graph, we may mistaken that it is the result obtained as a result of this procedure. But it is not like that. Electroencephalograph is the instrument and the result obtained is electroencephalogram. So, need to take care to don't get mistake over these two terms. Then application, where in which all situations we use EEG to diagnose epilepsy, whether a person have epilepsy or not, whether a person have sleep disorders, brain tumors, brain infection, brain hemorrhage means bleeding. Any bleeding is there inside the brain. For diagnosing all these things, we are using EEG. So first EEG is done by Hans Berger in 1929. Then I am going to tell you about the procedure of EEG. In the procedure of EEG, first a conducive conducive gel is applied all over the scalp. This gel reduce the resistance to the passage of electricity. Small electricity is passing and so many electrodes are fixing on different specific locations of the scalp, and connecting to this electrode an amplifier also present. And when slight electric current given to this electrode, electrical activity happens in the brain, that means in the network of nerves, and the electrical activity happens in different regions, can be recorded in the form of waves on a computer's monitor. And as we give small current through these electrodes, and we can record the electric current that produced in these electrodes as signals, and these signals are amplified to make it more obvious. Amplify with the help of this amplifier, and it's shown in a screen or monitor of computer, and we can take out the result in a paper, and it's composed of a series of waves, and each waves corresponds to the brain activity at a particular region, each wave. And on diagnosing this result, an expert person, a doctor, can predict whether the brain function normally or not, because there is a standard pattern for each wave. If there any alteration happens to that pattern, on interpreting that, an expert person can tell about the abnormality relating to the brain of that person, of that patient. That's about electroencephalogram. Electroencephalogram is the electrical recording of the brain activity by fixing electrodes in specified locations over the scalp of a patient after applying the conducive gel, and the electrical signal produced by each electrode as a result of the electrical activity happened in the nerves. That electrical signals are amplified with the help of amplifier and is recorded or seen in a computer monitor. This is the procedure of electroencephalogram. Next slide. Then I'm going to explain you about the different types of brain waves. In the EEG, we have seen so many waves, and mainly these waves are of 4 types. Alpha waves, first one. When these alpha waves are commonly produced, it is produced when it is produced when we are awake. Adults' brain usually produce this alpha waves, and in rest condition, when we are sitting in a very relaxed mood with our eyes closed, but we are not sleeping, our mind is conscious. In that condition, we could obtain the alpha waves out of that person who is awoke and relaxed. So alpha waves is formed in those persons. In those person means awoke adults, those who are very relaxed, whose eyes are closed, and the mind is relaxed without any stress. And its frequency, when often this alpha waves, it occurs in 8 and 30 times per second. The frequency per second, how many times these waves can be observed? 8 or 8 to 30 times per second. These waves will appear in EEG. Then its amplitude. Amplitude is more on scalp. Its amplitude is more where? In the scalp. And this wave cannot be recorded, cannot be noticed when a person with visual sensations or on sleep. When that person fall in sleep, this wave will disappear. So, alpha waves can be observed, can be recorded only when a person is awake, relaxed, and close and keep his eyes closed condition, relaxed condition. Its frequency is 8 to 13 times per second, and its amplitude high on scalp, and it disappear if that person fell asleep. The next is beta waves. Beta waves frequency is 8 to 30 times per second. 8 to 30 cycles. In that way we need to say 8 to 18 to 30. 18, 1 8. 18 to 30 cycles per second is the frequency. And where from which region it is obviously produced. Is produced particularly of the frontal region. Frontal means the front part, frontal region of the scalp. But the electrodes that is fixed on the frontal region of the scalp mainly record this beta waves. And it is observed when extra activation of central nervous system. When we are in a tension mood, then this beta waves will form. Then if EEG is performed on a person and we could find more beta waves, that means that the person is in a tensed mode. So that's about beta waves. Then coming to theta waves. Theta waves means its frequency is 4 to 7 cycles per second. It's a normal frequency. It is more, that means some abnormality. That's about that's the point that we need to understand while telling about the frequency for each wave. Normal frequency is there for each type of wave. Whenever that also disturbed, that is an indication of abnormal working of brain. Then theta waves, it is mainly recorded from parietal and temporal region. Temporal means the side regions of the brain. Temporal, parietal means somewhat it comes after the frontal region. Parietal region means. Then parietal and temporal regions of children means mainly observed in parietal and temporal regions of children. When it is observed, when theta waves are observed, it is observed in emotional stress. When that child is in an emotional stress, then only these waves will form. Emotional stress means that a child should be in some sort of disappointment or frustration. Only during that time, this theta waves will form. Then coming to delta waves. Delta waves means its frequency is 4 cycles per second. How many? 4 cycles per second. And it is observed when we are in deep sleep. When a person fall in a deep sleep, only in that time delta waves are produced. Okay. This is all about different types of brain waves. With this we can finish today's section. Thank you.